Hello and welcome to another episode of Do Not Fade This podcast. My name is Joshua Riemer, joined by none other than the man, the myth, the legend, Jared Block, and we are here once again for our preview podcast for the MLB season. I don't know about you, Jared. I had a lot of fun recording the AL Central one. We are on to the NL Central today, which I know you're excited about. You get to talk about your team, the Brewers, a little bit. Should be fun to talk about this division. This division made some really big moves, so I'm excited to talk about it. Tell me how excited you are to talk about the NL Central here.
Yes, my division, a division that always seems to highlight the Cubs as the favorite, though there's a lot of parity here. The Reds have a roster that can take a step forward. We'll see if they can do that. We'll talk about that. The Brewers always seem to have like the third or even fourth at times worst roster on paper, but then somehow find magical ways. Like they led the league in wins last year. With that said, yeah, there's a lot of parity here. We could also, like the AL Central, see a last place team take a next step forward. So we'll talk about that. Yeah, lots of moves. This division, like the AL Central, also seems to be technically the third worst division of their conference. So with that said, yeah, let's get into it, man.
Let's get into it. We're going to talk about, or we're going to start with the first segment, which is going to be our headline segment, where we talk about 3 to 5 headlines from the offseason for this division. And we'll start with the first one, Jared, which is Cubs go big, right? Big offseason acquisitions for this Cubs team. They got Alex Bregman. They got Edward Cabrera. They got a ton of other guys to add to this team. Seems like people are pretty excited about what the Cubs add, even with losing Kyle Tucker still. Give me your thoughts. What do you think about the Cubs?
Yeah, they didn't necessarily do a complete overhaul, but it was pretty close. In the previous show, we talked about teams not really doing much to improve their rosters for the majority of that division. This one, it does feel like there's a lot of turnover here from a lot of teams, and it starts with Chicago. Yes, losing Kyle Tucker does suck, but with that said, they did everything that they could to replace that and more, I think. The Cabrera thing is going to be, well, you and I talked about this a couple months ago when it happened, one of the most underrated moves of the entire offseason. It's a huge, huge thing for them to have a pitcher like Cabrera when you're pitching in Wrigley for the majority of your starts. So I really like that move. Alex Bregman essentially replaces Matt Shaw, who, if you remember, when the Cubs did get hot, and then they pretty much just went ice cold for the back half of the summer. Shaw was one of those only bright spots in that lineup, and so I guess that is what that is. But you're talking about an elite offense. You're talking about an elite outfield. Defensively, you're talking about the shortstop and the second base being one of the best defensive duos in the league, and now you add Bregman to the mix. So everything looks really, really good on paper. And yeah, I think the Cabrera move, like I said, both you and I are in agreement they're one of the most underrated moves of the offseason so far.
Yeah, Cabrera, definitely a big move for them. I think Kyle Tucker is a loss at the end of the day, but like, how much of a loss is he? He didn't play that well at the end of the year. We know that was partially due to like the wrist injury and everything, but like,
Right.
At the end of the day, I don't think Tucker's game was meant for the Chicago team. So, like, I think it's good to move on. I think it's a really good get with Edward Cabrera. I mostly like the Alex Bregman deal. I think it's a little bit of a long deal for an older guy, but I still see the upside he brings to this infield. And yeah, I think overall did the right stuff. So, definitely some fun stuff for the Cubs. All right, next headline, Jared, is homecoming for the Reds. We know that Eugenio Suarez is going to be returning to this team. Sounds like a lot of fun, man. You and I both got excited about this news very early on. As soon as it popped, we both thought, hey, this is a guy that can definitely have some big power in this small ballpark. Talk about Suarez a little bit. How excited are we for him coming to this Reds team?
Yeah, we're excited, number one, because it puts him in a very hitter-friendly ballpark where we used to see him smash bombs. And number two, it just gives this Reds team the little extra oomph that they have needed, where it didn't really come from guys like Matt McClain last year. So with that said, I think this is great security for Ellie De La Cruz. I think that this makes things a little bit more of a complete lineup. And I think, like, yeah, look, you were 83 and 79 last year. You didn't make the postseason, but I do think Suarez gives his team a couple more wins that could get them over the edge and into the wild card.
For sure. All right. Let's move on to another one, which is big time trade. We saw your Brewers do what they do best, Jared, and trade away one of their aces, right? But I feel like there's goods and bads of this, obviously, right? Freddie Peralta will be missed. That's a big deal. He was a big part of this rotation last year. He's been a big part of this rotation for a long time now. But the guys you got in return, you guys definitely took advantage of it. Like, you took advantage of his price. Getting Jet Williams and Brandon Sproat seems like the highest offer you could have gotten. Give me your thoughts. What do you think about your Brewers dealing Peralta?
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously this one does hurt, but it's with that said, it's the same story as the Corbin Burns era, and it's the same story as the Devin Williams stuff and Josh Hader. So, as Brewers fans, we're used to this, and I think at the end of the day, it's hard for Milwaukee to look at this and be like, what's our ceiling with Freddie back? You lose 0-4 to the Dodgers in the NLCS convincingly, I'll admit that. And on top of it, like Freddie got this, he had two starts, two chances in that series, got obliterated by the Dodgers. Like, you can't really, you reached your ceiling essentially. And so what the Brewers do is they will just try to get as much as they can for this, and they got what they could. And for, like we mentioned earlier in the show, like, they'll just do whatever they can, and somehow they'll flip that into 90 wins somehow. So, like, I do agree that you got what you could for it. I'm sad to see Freddie go, but at the end of the day, this is a classic Brewers move.
Yeah, pretty classic Brewers move, like you said. This still, like, I know hindsight's 2020, but like the return for Woodruff didn't seem like it was all that much at the end of the day. Back when it happened, Burns, excuse me. Yes, thank you. It didn't seem like all that much for Burns. This feels just like you guys got a significantly better end of the deal at the end of the day. So I'm excited. It should be interesting to watch. All right, last headline here is hitting the reset button, Jared. And this pertains to the Cardinals, who lose Wilson Contreras, Sonny Gray, Nolan Arenado, Brendan Donovan, Miles Mikolas, and a few others. Truly just hitting the reset button on this Cardinals team that has kind of been wishy-washy at best with that veteran crew, and now we're going to see a whole new team. So give me your thoughts on the Cardinals hitting the reset button. Was it the right move? Was it the wrong move? What do you think?
Yeah, this is truly a hard reset. I'll add Goldschmidt to that list too, because this is the end of an era for St. Louis. This was we're on the precipice of possibly being an NL Central contender, as well as they had the pieces, and then just everything started to go wrong at the worst times. You have a lot of Contreras injuries on that as well. Nolan Arenado flashed for a couple of years with St. Louis, and then just kind of has fizzled out the last couple. So I'm excited to talk about him when we get to the NL West, because I do think it's a reset button for him. But yeah, the Arenado, Goldie, Contreras era is now over for St. Louis. We'll talk about it more from an offseason perspective, but I do think this will be one of the worst teams in baseball. It'll take some time to get things figured out here.
Yeah, it certainly will. All right, Jared, we head over to our next segment, which is off-season report cards, where we're going to run through each team's departures and acquisitions, and we will give them a grade from A to F on how we think they did. We will start out with your Brewers, Jared, who, like we said, they got Jet Williams and Brandon Sproat in a trade with the Mets. They obviously traded away Peralta. They also made another trade with the Red Sox where they got Kyle Harrison and David Hamilton. They traded away Caleb Durbin and a few other third basemen in that one. You got Luis Rengifo, you got Akil Baddoo, you got Gary Sanchez back, and those other departures, Danny Jansen, Rhys Hoskins, Jose Quintana, Isaac Collins, Tobias Myers, Eric Fetty, Jordan Montgomery, and a few other guys there. Give me your grade. What do you think about your Brewers, A to F here?
Well, I can't give them an A just because they'd never got a splash play. I think that you have to kind of do that, or do really, really well in the hard reset kind of thing in order to hit an A. So I'll give them a B minus. I do think we win long term on the Freddie Peralta deal. Obviously we lose if the Mets win a title. But with that said, I think that the Brewers did the right thing at the right time in terms of that regard. And from there, I like the pitching bullpen depth that we have. I like the fact that we were able to get Luis Rengifo on a one-year deal, because you said we traded all of our third basemen away in the Red Sox deal because of the Bregman move. So with that said, I think I got to give it a B minus. I think that they basically treaded water essentially, and I think that they do have some long-term pieces that can make sense. And obviously, they did everything with the Peralta stuff without having to give up any prime prospects either.
Yep, for sure. I'm going with a B here. I again will emphasize how good I think the trade for Peralta was overall, or trading away Peralta was. I think it was the right move to trade away Peralta. I think that this is truly like the ceiling of what you could have gotten with Jet and Sproat. Like I think both of these guys are top level talent, and like I said, like when you guys traded away Corbin Burns, when you guys traded away other elite pitching, I haven't felt like fantastic about the returns you've gotten. This feels like an A+ side on your guys' side. And like you said, if the Mets win a title, they probably get an A+ on their side too. If Peralta doesn't turn out to be all that or struggles with the big market, like it's a humongous win for you guys. So I think just that trade alone makes me feel really good about what you guys did. I also like the Luis Rengifo deal. And yeah, I think overall, I hope Kyle Harrison can turn into something. Like I think there is talent there at the end of the day. We'll see if the Brewers can do what they do and end up extracting that pitcher talent from him. All right. Anything else for your Brewers that you want to mention? If not, we'll move on to the next team.
No, not for this again. Like treading water plus getting high upside in the future.
For sure. All right, we move on to the Cubs here, Jared, and we'll talk about their offseason acquisitions and departures. Their acquisitions, they got Alex Bregman, Edward Cabrera, they re-signed Shota Imanaga, they did a whole revamping of the bullpen. Hunter Harvey, Phil Matten, Caleb Thibar, Shelby Miller, Hobie Milner, Jacob Webb, all added to the bullpen or re-signed. Tyler Austin also signed in a one-year deal and a deal for Conforto as well. Departures are definitely there, though, right? Kyle Tucker ends up leaving to go to the Dodgers. Andrew Kittredge ends up leaving. Brad Keller, Willie Castro, a few relief pitchers, and a few lower-level pieces at the end of the day. Give me your grade. What do you think about the Cubs?
Yeah, I do think that losing Tucker does bump this out of the A territory. I do believe, though, that they did enough to at least qualify for, I'll give it a straight B. I think that they did what they could and moved on from this scenario. And like I said, the Cabrera thing kind of just moves me over the edge, and I do think that he will be very, very good for them. He's slotted in the projected as the third overall starting pitcher. And like you said, like the bullpen overhaul is notable because this team is very, very tested in terms of what happens in the summer in Wrigley. So I do think that this is a slight upgrade over what Milwaukee did. I'll give it a B.
Yeah, I can certainly get behind it. I will go C+ here. I think the biggest worry is that, like, I know someone was going to give Bregman the big deal. I think whoever gives Bregman the big deal is a kind of a loser at the end of the day. Like, the end of that deal can end up being a really sour taste in your mouth, I think.
Sure.
Just because he is on the older side right now already, and to give him 5 years on such a high amount of money is, I mean, someone, like I said, someone was going to give it to him. It was just a matter of who, and it ends up being the Cubs. Hopefully he ends up paying off most of the contract in the early years where you can stomach those end of years or end of contract numbers. But yeah, I feel a little bit iffy about that contract. Like you said, I love the Edward Cabrera deal, just like you do. So like that definitely shows through in the retooling of the bullpen was certainly somewhat needed. Overall, I like it. I don't think it's anything like super impressive because Bregman takes away from that. Bregman and Cabrera kind of balance each other out almost. So
Sure.
That is where I'm at with this Cubs team. All right, we head over to the Reds, Jared. Not a lot that went on. Obviously, we already mentioned Eugenio Suarez is their key acquisition in the offseason, but they also got J.J. Bleday. Emilio Pajan is a reliever that they re-signed. Pierce Johnson, Caleb Ferguson, and Brock Burke are all guys that they ended up adding to the bullpen. They got Nathaniel Lowe, and they got Dane Myers as well. Departures, though, they lost Gavin Lux in a trade. Austin Hayes ended up leaving. Miguel Andujar left. And then Brent Suter, Scott Barlow, and Nick Martinez are some of the pitchers that ended up leaving. Give me a grade. What do you think?
Yeah, man. I after going through this, like, yes, we like the Suarez deal itself. I think it's great for Ellie's ceiling in that regard, and I think it's a power bet that they've desperately needed. With that said, like, I think that that Suarez move is not enough to really offset what they gave up in general. Not talking that deal specifically, but just everybody that kind of has departed. Like, I do think that Lux leaving is a big deal. I do think that a couple of these guys losing Nick Martinez certainly is a part of that. So I can't rank it above Chicago or Milwaukee. I think just got to give it a straight C because it is pretty much just tit for tat, and I think they might have lost in general.
Yeah, I go C, and I have a lot of the same sentiment that you have. But to add on another point here, it feels really bare of starting pitching. Like you have you have a starting rotation of Hunter Green that missed a ton of time last year. Nick Lodolo has missed a ton of time. Chase Burns has been very hard to keep healthy. Andrew Abbott has even had his struggles with health at times. Like this is a starting rotation that looks absolutely filthy overall, but if any of these guys end up getting injured, you run into real problems where you're trotting out Brandon Williamson and some of these other guys that you're just not nearly as excited about.
Yep.
So I feel like you needed depth at starting pitching somewhere, some veteran presence here for all these young guys, and they just did not do a good job of getting it. So I like the Eugenio Suarez deal. I like most of this other stuff. I don't mind the departures at the end of the day, but not getting starting pitching feels like a huge mistake to be made. So I'll go with C here. All right. We move on to the next team, which is going to be the St. Louis Cardinals. Their key offseason acquisitions involved getting Dustin May, Ramon Urias, Brandon Clark, Richard Fitz, Hunter Dobbins, and Ryan Stanek are those main guys. Key offseason departures. They traded away Wilson Contreras. They traded away Sonny Gray. Nolan Arenado is to the Diamondbacks. Brendan Donovan got traded to the Mariners. Miles Mikolas is gone. And John King is gone out of the bullpen as well. Give me your grade. What do you think?
Oh, so here's the thing, like, where are we putting a team in a category that we know just like is hitting the hard reset? I like it can't you can't give it like in some regard you could argue that this is an A just because they have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, look, this team's just not going to be good. Did you see, unrelated to this conversation, but did you see that they know that they're going to be bad? So the Cardinals announced that they're going to make this this like food deal, like it's an amazing discount for what they are doing with the concessions, and that tells you everything you need to know. They're not people just aren't going to show up for this team, so they're incentivizing people to get there. So at the end of the day, I think you have to give it what it is, and like they did not get better over the offseason. I think it's an F.
Yeah,
Here's the thing, like if you want to say what's best for this team 5 years from now, then probably like an A, right? Because you're giving away all your guys trying to retool and stuff. I'm going to give it an F for this whole fact that I just don't think they're going to be good this year.
I think like you have two key grades here, right? Like you said, like you can very well give this an A and B. Like the Cardinals are moving in the direction they needed to. They saw at the end of the day that they're not making the postseason with that squad that they had. This is a really good job of hitting the reset button. Like I think I am very much of the opinion as a fan and as a person who watches a lot of baseball. Like if you don't have a chance at winning it, you should be hitting the reset button. You should be getting your prospects up, giving them more time to play, getting them used to the environment. This is like a good thing. In terms of like getting wins, obviously, this is a clear F. So I decided to go right in the middle. I went with C- here. Obviously, you're not happy with anything, but I think you have good projects here, right? Like Dustin May is a guy who definitely came into the bigs with big expectations, didn't necessarily live up to them with the Dodgers, and you kind of get a chance to potentially retool his career. And the other things are just meh. I think you make time for guys that weren't going to have time in this lineup beforehand, which is exciting. Again, like I said, you can grade it as an A, saying that like Cardinals know the direction they're going and good on them. You can also grade it an F, saying that like they didn't do enough. They're not going to get more wins, obviously, because of what they did. At least most likely, anything can happen in baseball. So we'll go with C- here. That deal you mentioned, for those who aren't chronically online, like Jared and I think it's like $29, and you get free hot dogs, free drinks, not beer, I'm pretty sure. Free ice cream, free pretzel, like a whole bunch of different free concessions, and you get outfield seats too on top of that, and pretty good outfield seats. I mean, they're second deck, but like still pretty good outfield seats at the end of the day. All for $29. Like you said, they definitely know that this won't be a good a year for them overall, but they're making it entertaining with the fans, which is more than you can say for most organizations at the end of the day. So I guess it's not too bad of a thing. All right, Jared, anything you want to mention for off-season report cards? If not, we'll head over to rookie roundup.
Well, we got to do one more team because we haven't even talked about this team yet.
Yeah, we haven't talked about this team once. And I was debating on whether to add a headline for them. I ended up not adding a headline. But we do have to talk about the Pirates here because they had a pretty significant offseason, right? They add Brandon Lau in a trade with the Rays and Astros. They add Ryan O'Hearn, Marcell Ozuna, Jose Urquidy. Greg Soto is part of the bullpen now. Jake Mangum is part of the outfield. Mason Montgomery added. And Jokeston Garcia, or the password, is also added to this team. I'm excited about that Garcia deal. Their key offseason departures, though. They lost Jovan Oviedo, Mike Burrows, and Colin Holderman. Give me your thoughts. What do you think about the Pirates here? What do you give them as a grade?
Yeah, I don't like the Burrows departure. That hurts. But it does feel like an inevitability for Pittsburgh. Watch him be a star moving forward here. I like the Burrows, just future in general. With that said, I do think adding Brandon Lau at the top of the lineup makes a lot of sense. I do like that a lot. I think that Ryan O'Hearn is an interesting addition. I do think that Marcell Ozuna, if things don't go well, is likely only a summer rental. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, Mangum too. I think that's a pretty underrated move in general. I will have to give this team, I do think it's a better offseason than the Reds. I think it's pretty in lockstep with Milwaukee. With that said, I do think that this team takes the next step for what they can do. I'm not saying that they're a wild card contender, but they're at least trying more now than they have been in recent years because of what Skeens can offer. So guys want to play there, they can go and get some guys. I think it's a B+.
Yeah, I had B+ too. I hate to be like a copycat here, but I already had it written down, so that's what I'm going to go with. I love this offseason, man. I think that, like, as long as, knock on wood, you have Paul Skeens stay healthy. He's the second best pitcher in baseball right now. You have some of these other guys stay healthy, like Bubba Chandler and Jared Jones when he comes back in the summer. This is a pretty lethal rotation overall, and I really like the lineup, especially if you do end up adding Connor Griffin to this lineup, which I think is kind of a 50-50 shot whether they bring him up or not. If they do bring him up, though, in the summer, I think that's a massive upgrade to bring, and I like what the lineup has in total. I think it's a step forward. I think you still have some weaknesses, obviously. Like, I think the catcher position with Joey Bart isn't necessarily where you'd want it to be. I think third base is definitely a struggle spot, but like I think Brandon Lau's an excellent hitter that's going to excel coming out of Tropicana finally. And I think Marcell Ozuna is a guy that gives some protection to the top of the lineup. Like, I think he helps Brian Reynolds have a really good season. And I think these are just a bunch of guys that you add to the lineup that help O'Neal Cruz, too, in the leadoff spot. So, like, I really like this offseason for them. I think you can make the conversation that they had the best offseason in the division at the end of the day.
Okay, yeah, I don't disagree. Two notes on this, though, that I think maybe we can't put them into the A, though we might want to. Number one, how concerned are you with this starting rotation being all right-handed? You also add Jared Jones to that mix. Number two, yes, they could shift some things around with the actual starting lineup, but you see a really top-heavy left-handed situation. How do you view those two things?
Yeah, I understand it for sure. I don't know. That's kind of why I have him at B+, I guess. I'm not all that worried about the right-handed pitching. I think you can go out and get a lefty. If things are going really well for this Pirates team, then like you go out and get a lefty at the trade deadline to make this rotation a little bit better  maybe. You go out and get a right-handed bat to make the starting lineup a little bit better. I don't think those two things are out of the equation. So like you said, I'm not putting him at A+. material here. I still have him at B plus, but like I think they're definitely putting the chips in, which is better than what the Pirates usually do, and it's getting behind the cheap years of Skeens, which is something that you need to do now before he either leaves or he becomes really, really expensive because those years will be coming up soon. So I think it's the right move forward for a Pirates team that tends to save a lot of money.
Yep, don't disagree there. But yeah, like you said, this team could definitely have a strong argument for best offseason in the division.
Yeah, without a doubt. All right, we head over, Jared, to Rookie Roundup, where we talk about some of our favorite rookies in the division. I will let you go first. This is definitely a division with lots of guys that we get to talk about, which is a lot of fun. Which rookie do you want to talk about first?
Yeah, we got to start with Connor Griffin, right? Because we've seen him now hit. We were going to record this a few days ago after he hit the 2 home run game. Hit another one in spring training. What do you think this guy's ceiling is? We talked about the Tigers prospect too. How do you compare those two guys? Because they are both on fire right now in spring training.
Yeah, I like Connor Griffin quite a bit. I definitely think he brings a lot to the table. Ceiling wise, man, I think you can make the conversation that like he's one of those top guys at the shortstop position at the end of the day when it's all said and done. That's kind of the name of the game for this whole division is like everyone has a really good shortstop that they can talk about, or at least 3 of the teams do. Yeah, I like what Connor Griffin brings to the table. The swing looks really sweet in spring training, which with spring training you have to take everything with a grain of salt. He also does add a right-handed bat to this lineup potentially if he does end up coming in. So yeah, I like a lot. I think, like I said, I feel kind of iffy on if they bring him up or not. Like I could definitely see if they're in a bad spot mid-season and they don't feel a need to bring him up, they'll continue to mess with contract time and service time and let him just stay in the minors for another year until they do get a little bit more competitive. But I think Griffin has a lot of upside here.
He had a 165 WRC plus last year.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Insane. 2060 season, 19 years old. Yeah, like it's McGonigal has 2 years on him, and I do think overall, if you look at, you're definitely just choosing straws, but like I do think in terms of overall, or at least we can make the case that like pound for pound, the hitting is pretty equivalent. I would say that if you're looking at fielding, maybe Griffin's got the slighter edge on McGonigal. But that's, again, choosing straws. So we'll probably see him regardless of if this team is good or bad. It's just a matter of when, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a matter of when. I don't know. I think teams like this usually try to manipulate service time as much as possible. I don't think it's a guarantee we see him this year. I hope we do. I think it'd be awesome if we did, but I don't know. We'll end up seeing. All right, I'm going to bring up the guy that I'm surprised you didn't bring up. Your guy in Jesus Made. Made, I don't know how to say the last name exactly, but this guy is a stud. He is right behind Connor Griffin. His ETA might end up being next year, but I think it would be smart like you said, like the Brewers always find their way to 90 wins. It seems like if they end up finding their way halfway through the season where they are cooking, I think the right thing to do would be to bring him up. He's only 18 years old, but he has basically every single tool at the end of the day. Like he has the speed, he has everything. He's a switch hitter. I've seen a lot of comparisons to Junior Caminero at the end of the day. I really like what Jesus brings to the table for this Brewers team. Last year had a 128 WRC plus in the minors between A ball and double A ball. Brings some heavy K stuff at the end of the day, but yeah, I think all those things can be fixed. I like his upside. I think that he has all the tools to be an MLB level shortstop.
Yeah, it's really promising when you look at that compared with Churio and Terang, who were top prospects for this team. I do think that it would be a stretch to see him in Milwaukee at the big league level this year, but he's also in camp right now with them, so there's promise there. Obviously, if you're Milwaukee, you want to try to see what he's doing with the top club in spring training. So with that said, I do think he is the eventual replacement of Joey Ortiz at short. I think that a tandem of Terang and Made in the shortstop second base category is pretty elite at the end of the day. So With that said, I'm excited for it. I don't expect to see him this year, but maybe we do see something if injuries take place.
Yeah, for sure. All right. You want to talk about anyone else? I definitely have more guys that I'd love to
Yeah.
talk about here. So
Yeah, we definitely need to talk about J.J. Weatherholt, who ranks as MLB's number 5 overall prospect for the Cardinals. He is an infielder, and I do think he'll be the guy that replaces, the majority of the guys that they left. I'm not sure necessarily where they will elect to put him. From the MLB website right now, it does project him as the starting second baseman at the bottom of the lineup for the Cardinals. But yeah, talk to me about JJ because it does look like after the Donovan move and after obviously Arenado, you can kind of put him wherever you want to. The infield kind of looks like it's a little bit all over the place right now in terms of projection outside of Mason Wynn. But yeah, JJ Weatherholt probably will be a starting infielder for this team.
yeah, for sure. I really like his stuff. I think you're bringing some good talent overall here. I don't think he's on the level of Made or Connor Griffin, who I think are like those guys that can end up being the elite tier of shortstop in the league. But I think Weatherholt's a good utility guy. He can play multiple positions. He can play second base. He can play third base for you. He can play shortstop. He has really good bat to ball skills. He has really good vision. He walked at double digit rates at all levels last year, at AA and AAA, and had a strikeout rate below 15%, which I think is pretty awesome at the end of the day. So definitely a lot of upside for Weatherholt. Again, he's not that elite level. I saw comparisons to Chase Utley. I'm not sure if I can necessarily buy it, but I definitely like the overall upside for him.
Yeah, I think out of the guys that we've talked about so far, it seems like he is the guy most suited to start on opening day.
Yeah, definitely the most experience overall. He also is 23, so like we're talking about a guy that's 5 years older, just 4 years older than both of the guys that we mentioned. But yeah, definitely the most upside to start. All right, anyone else you want to mention here? If not, we can move on.
I mean, the division has a lot of top 100 guys, so you're going to likely see some of them. Like we talked about Bubba Chandler in passing. We know that Luis Pena is a guy that the Brewers are eyeing. He's 19 years old, infielder there, maybe a future third baseman. We'll see. The only notable thing that I wanted to just mention here to close this segment out is that Chicago doesn't have a lot of top prospects because they're going all in at the MLB level. The top guy on their team right now for prospects sits in the back 50s, and that is a right-handed pitcher. Why can't I find it? I just saw it.
It's Jackson Wiggins.
Jackson Wiggins. Sorry about that. Yeah. So you also have Ballesteros, who's played at the big league level. So yeah, in terms of prospects, this division's got a lot of them.
Yeah, I was going to bring up Ballesteros. I do think like he's still technically. I mean, he might not be on the top 100 list, but he is still technically that prospect for this team. He does bring a lot to the table. Last year was his first year. We saw some really good stuff from him. It'll be interesting to see what he can do with a full year under his belt. All right. Anything else here, Jared? If not, we head over to division power rankings.
Nope. We can move on.
All right. We start off with the 5th spot, the lowest, the team that we think is going to be the worst in the division. I don't think this will be that hard for either of us. Jared, who's your bottom place team here?
Yeah, I know. It's going to be a kind of a repeat of last show with the AL Central. This is going to be one where I teased this at the beginning of the show. I think that the worst team in the league will not be, or worst team in the division will not be the worst team in the division this year. I'm going St. Louis Cardinals as 5th and last place in this division, and arguably you could make a case that they are, I don't know, the 3rd worst team in the conference.
Yeah, you can definitely make a conversation that they're going to be one of those bottom teams in the conference overall. They are my 5th place team as well. Under or over 69.5 win total.
I'm going to have to go under, man. I talked about this team a bad life for a majority of the show, so I'm going to stick to my guns, and somebody's got to go under for this division, right?
Yeah, someone has to go under. I definitely think they end up going under. I am right there with you. All right, we head on to 4th place. Who do you got?
Yeah, I think when you talk about Pittsburgh's offseason, we love it, and I do think that they have the tools to continue to get better. as Skeens develops. And with a win total sitting, I have 78.5. Is that still true to this day?
I don't know. I'm going off of our sheet.
All
I
right.
can definitely go
I'll
check.
just I'll keep going, but like this has the makings of working out and getting better year over year, but at the same time, there is also a world where maybe some of these pitching prospects don't work out. Maybe the lineup tends to struggle. You deal Marcell Ozuna in the summer. Maybe O'Neal Cruz doesn't take a next step. I'm not sure, but like yeah, there's definitely worlds where things can fall apart a little bit. So yeah, I'm gonna rank them fourth, and I think I'm gonna have to go and just confirm with you what the win total over under is before I make a decision on there.
78.5. So.
I just don't think this is an 80 win team just yet. I'm gonna go under.
All right. You're going to go under. I am going to differ from you and put the Reds as my fourth place team. Look, I think it will be a close test between these two. But again, I think ceiling sky high for this Reds team. I think if everything goes right and everything, the pitching staff, everyone makes 20 plus starts, it's a beautiful season and you're really happy with what the Reds can do. What is my confidence level of everyone making 20 plus starts? Near zero, probably.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I could be any less bullish on the health of this rotation, considering all the problems they've had in the past. Again, when this rotation is at its best, it's incredibly good. I just don't know how long they can stay healthy for. And I think that death situation of pitcher is going to be a severe problem. So I will end up going with the Reds as my fourth place team. Their over-under is at 81.5 wins. I'm obviously going under here. If they go over, it'd be really hard for them to be fourth place. But I will go under here for the Reds. All right, third place. Who do you got in your division rankings here?
Yeah, we'll obviously flip flop. I do think that you have valid concerns with the starting rotation's health, and it does feel like you will have to, like I said before, like the Suarez stuff is not very, very nice for the lineup in general, but what you lost in return of that is kind of just, for me, pretty dead even, if not maybe making them losers in the offseason. But yeah, everything's going to have to go right for this team to win 80 plus games, 85 plus games, and that still might not be enough to make the wild card at the end of the day, just given where they are and the two teams that are above them in the power rankings, I believe. So yeah, I still think that they're third in the division, but I will also go under just because I do feel like there are so many things that are we haven't talked about the NL East or West yet, and I just feel like the Reds are in a spot where it's like their bullish case scenario is number one, health, like we mentioned. Number two, though, they're just gonna have to win a lot of like 2-1, 3-2 games, and that's just the luck factor of baseball and variance factor at the end of the day. And I just don't know if this offense is going to be good enough consistently to win those close games. So I'll go under on the win total, but I will have them third place still.
Yeah, I will say that like teams with like very good pitching parks can get away with backup pitching, bad backup pitching at the end of the day. And I think that's my main problem with the Reds is that like if you end up getting that backup pitching involved, that AAA level pitching involved in the starting rotation, they then have to go pitch in Great American Small Park, which is Great American Ballpark usually, but we call it Small Park because it's an incredibly small park. And in Cincinnati, it gets really hot in the summer. So you see the baseball fly here, and I just think that's going to be a real issue for this Reds team at the end of the day. Like you said, we're flip-flopping, obviously. The Pirates will have a good year. I feel like they will, but they aren't going to go any higher than third here. Yeah, I just like the lineup. I like the rotation quite a bit. Like, I think, obviously, you have Skeens headlining it, which is really good, but having Bubba Chandler, having Mitch Keller, Jared Jones, all these guys are going to end up providing some really good time for this team, some really good pitching for this team. And then I like the improvements in the starting lineup. And I'm basing this off of the fact that I think there has to be a real emphasis for this Pirates team that like, all right, we only have so many years of cheap Skeens pitching at this Cy Young level. We have to take advantage of it. And hopefully that means maybe a move towards midseason at the trade deadline, maybe Connor Griffin coming up a little bit early and playing really well in this lineup. Yeah, I think that overall there's a lot to be excited about for the Pirates. So I have them as my third place in the division rankings. All right, second place. Who do you got, Jared?
Yeah, I mean, year over year in this Brewers era, we've just seen them find a way to get 85 to 90 wins and win the division. And even if they're not winning the division, they're still extremely close and competitive. The Reds over-under was sitting at, 81? The Brewers are sitting at 83 and a half. And I do think that that's relative. 84 and a half. And I think that's relatively accurate. I have them second here in the division, though. Again, like I just think that if you're looking at this division specifically, it's very clear to me that there's like a gridlock of number one and number two in the division, and then things are in a different tier altogether. And then obviously the Cardinals could be one of the teams with the most losses in the MLB. So I'm going to go just a very, I think this is a really, really good and accurate line. So I'm going to go slightly over, and that's purely for fandom purposes as well as just believing in the team. This is the same conversation year over year over year, it seems like.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not going to get cute here. I have the Brewers at number 2 as well. I do think you're right in saying that like 84 and a half is incredibly accurate. I will go under here at the end of the day. I think the pitching looks beautiful. Like I think Mizorowski hopefully fixes some of the control issues and looks really good. I hope you guys do what you usually do with pitching prospects and make Kyle Harrison into something really good. Woodruff, as long as he can stay healthy, is a really good front of the line guy in the starting rotation. I just have some real questions about this offense. Like, I know Jackson Chourio and Christian Yelich are really solid, but you get towards the bottom and, like, you're not that excited about Luis Rengifo is a little bit different, I guess, but Sal Frelick and Andrew Vaughn and Garrett Mitchell, like, I guess best case scenario, they can get you by in a season. Worst case scenario, you have some real trouble scoring runs at the end of the day because the back end of the lineup isn't holding up. So I'll go under here at 84 and a half. I think they're probably still in the 80s, most likely. I could see them being 82, 83. It's just, I don't know if they end up getting over that 85 mark. All right. And then our number one team, Jared, talk about the Cubs. Why do you got them at number 1?
Yeah, I think this is a spot where, like, I do think that, again, for the millionth time on the show, Cabrera does bring some. That's a needle-moving decision, and to get him and acquire him, I have some thoughts. So I'm gonna go over for the sake of the division, and I think that they do win it this year. I do think that it will come down to what they do against the Brewers, but they should be able to handle the rest of the division. With that said, I like the offseason. I think I have some concerns in terms of what the starting rotation does look like. I'm hoping that Justin Steele does come back and can look pretty good. But did you see what happened to Shota Imanaga over the weekend? Because he got absolutely blown up, giving up multiple home runs in his first preseason start or spring training start. And he did not look good for the back half of the season last year. So we'll see how they adjust to some of this stuff. But at the end of the day, I do think that this is a top 5 offense in baseball. And that's probably going to end up carrying them for the majority of the summer in Wrigley. So, yeah, I don't have many complaints. And I think that they can go over their win total of 88.5. This team won 92 games last year, and you could say that outside of the month of whatever, I think it was June, they were the best offense in baseball for like a 2 or 3 week stretch. You could say they underperformed last year, and they still got over 90 wins. So I'll take the over and first place for Cubs.
Yeah, I got over in first place as well. Look, like I said, I don't like the end of the Bregman deal, but I think adding him to the roster is a really good move. And I think you end up making this infield a really good defensive infield and a really good infield overall with power and some good stuff at the plate. I like everything else. We've mentioned enough Edward Cabrera stuff, but you also got Justin Steele, who I know is dealing with that elbow injury, but he should be back. You got some other exciting pieces in the starting rotation. Like, I think overall this Cubs team looks really good. And while I think they'll be really good, I don't think they're not at the top of the NL. Like, I don't think think the NL East and NL West division leaders will be better teams. But I like what the Cubs bring to the table at the end of the day. So I have them as the number one team, and I have them going over here. All right, Jared, anything else? Any other thoughts for power rankings? If not, we'll head over to Two Minds Are Better Than One.
No, I think it'll be interesting. I think the key piece of this division itself is what do the Reds do? Like that's kind of how this division is going to come. Like in my opinion, because you could make a case. You could make a case that in a month from now, that maybe the Reds are a second place division team that could make a wild card. Just in like, what if Woodruff gets hurt? What if Mizurowski doesn't have it second year? What if like you said, your lineup concerns from Milwaukee? Like, there's a world where Cincinnati can kind of open the door for the wild card. They were not very far out last year.
Yeah, I mean, like you were shaking your head yes when I said this point. Like the ceiling is incredibly high for this Reds team. It just feels like the floor is also incredibly low. So definitely an interesting division overall. Let's head over to Two Minds Are Better Than One. For those who don't know how it works, Jared and I go back and forth, each of us selecting 2 season-long player props each. We add those into a parlay, and we make a nice little parlay for you guys. I think we ended up getting plus money last time. I don't honestly remember the odds of our last one. But Jared, let's do it again. I'll let you go first. Where do you want to go?
Yeah, I'm gonna go homer and try to find my my boy Jackson Churio for home runs, because I do think this is a breakout. Look, last year was definitely a breakout season before he got sidelined with a couple of leg injuries. I think that the sky's the limit. I'm looking for a home run number, so if you can help me find it, that would be great.
20 plus home run. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. What are your odds for 20?
20 is minus 340, 25 plus is minus 125, and then goes on from there.
Yeah, I think he's a 25 plus homer guy. So let's go there.
Right. Let's go 25 plus. I am going over to this Pirates team. I would feel wrong not to do so just because I talked him up so much. We're going to go with the acquisition. We're going to go with Brandon Lau for 20 plus homers here. Really like his upside. I think getting him, obviously he didn't play in Tropicana last year because of the Tropicana repairs, but like getting him out of Tropicana is going to be a massive improvement for him. I think having him play 81 games, even though the Pirates Park isn't all that hitter friendly, almost anything is more hitter friendly than Tropicana at the end of the day. So Brandon Lau for 20 plus home runs here. All right, where are you going to go next, Jared?
Unless DraftKings sees something that I don't, I think this is a steal of a play. I know it's going to be relatively juiced at this number, but I think that the sky is the limit again for like a third straight season for Eugenio Suarez. Look, he had a couple of down years in the early 2020s, but then now 2024 he had 30 home runs with Arizona. He hit 36 with Arizona before even getting traded, and then he hit 13 with Seattle to finish the year off. So back-to-back seasons of 40 plus home runs. Back-to-back seasons of 30 plus home runs. Last year, 49. I do think this is a spot where you still have Ellie De La Cruz in front of him, right? Like this, and then you get the park upgrade. We talked about some of the pitching that the Reds will have to go up against, and so I do think that this is another 30 plus home run season for Eugenio Suarez. Right now, that number is minus 210 on DraftKings.
Yep, definitely like that. Definitely a solid spot for him. And then I'm going to go to the guy that we talked about the most on the show. I think, like, if you look at the division, at the end of the day, the best get out of any team was Edward Cabrera. And so we're going to go with Edward Cabrera for 140 plus strikeouts here on the season. So just to recap what we have Brandon Lau for 20 plus home runs, Edward Cabrera for 140 regular season strikeouts, Jackson Churio for 25 plus regular season home runs, and Eugenio Suarez for 30 plus regular season home runs. All together get you at plus 379. Not too shabby at all. All right, Jared, give me your final notes. What are your thoughts on the NL Central?
Yeah, I think that you're in two camps here at the end of the day. I think you either just say Chicago has, and we say this every year, they have the better roster on paper than Milwaukee, and then something just happens. The Brewers turn on the magic and they get there. So either you're in Milwaukee camp or you're in Chicago camp. And then from there, it's like, do the Reds take the next step forward? Can they get there? Can their starting pitching stay healthy? And then Pittsburgh, we kind of just like them in general as the team that had the best offseason in that division. I'll end it with this, Josh. if Edward Cabrera has a bad year, it'll look really, really bad for us. But if he has
Yeah.
a really, really good year, we were right all along.
Yeah, we get to pat ourselves on the back, and no one will give us credit for it. Yeah, I think that like overall, it's probably the worst division in the NL. I guess is all around talent. Like I'm not super excited about anything. I'm excited to talk baseball, which always makes this fun. But like, yeah, I think the Cubs have a good chance of at the end of the day making this non-competitive. A lot of things can go wrong. Obviously, baseball is baseball, but yeah, should be a fun division overall. All right, you got any other thoughts? If not, let's get out of here, man.
Let's get out of here.
All right, thank y'all for listening, and we will see y'all on the next one.